Welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Brandon, and today we're looking at Nazarick, Tomb of the Undead, essentially Overlord with the fancy title. We're looking at the deck today. This deck is going to be focused on humanity's perspective, for the most part, looking at the characters from Overlord from that side and that compilation for the deck. So the deck's mainly going to be yellow and blue, so we're looking forward to that. Let's just dive right in. Starting off, we have the beautiful Princess Nave. Now, she's a great card to start off with, great card to lead out with, because she has the cool ability to bounce back into hand, help save hands, help save resources that way to be able to continue further, especially early on, depending on what the game state looks like. If you start out with her first, it may be better to have her out, because then she has 3,000 power, and she's actually a decent wall to start off with. Next up, we have Reason for the Handicap, Eins. This is a good way to ditch climaxes to be able to get characters back into hand. Great way to essentially hand fix as well as salvage. Salvage is actually going to be really important through this card. Brainstormer we run in this deck, which we're going to get to here in a second, does search. So having a way to salvage and search, it's great for the set and great for your hand to be able to reach both areas to get the cards you need. Next up we have our Drop Searcher, which is our, to the most beloved one, Albedo. Allows you to be able to pay one, ditch one to go search for a character card that you need. Worthy of note that it has to be Grotesque Race or Nazarick. Nazarick has a bunch of different traits, and that's actually going to come relevant here in a minute, of traits they are looking for. Characters from the actual tomb, the Floor Guardians and whatnot, and they have traits that are different from humanity's traits. Point them out as we go, but because of that, you have to be very careful of what you're searching for with this deck. This deck does require to have a little bit of precision as you go through. As we look at our next card, this is kind of where we begin to see these highlights come into play. This is our Brainstormer, the Golden Princess Renner. Your other character in the middle stage gets additional 500 power. That's actually going to be really helpful. And we'll kind of explain why that's going to be really helpful in a minute. But she's also a Brainstormer, pay one rest itself. Search for up to one blue card or the trait Raven Black character. Reveal it to hand and put it into your deck. I would like to point out so far, none of the cards in this deck that we've revealed so far have either of those things. This Brainstormer allows us to be able to search forward, allows us to be able to get the cards that we're looking forward to get to the next level. It does not search out some of these zero hand fix options. However, that seems to actually works out really, really well, because we're able to get some other options instead. The previous options are more like emergency stuff. They're not stuff that you want necessarily to be searching out. This one gets specifically the cards you're looking for to go forward. An additional 500 power that it gives to the middle character can become really relevant when we get to level 1, and that helps to maintain advantage moving forward. Jumping back to the Nazarick side, we have leader of the Pleiades, Sebes. So again, kind of like it's a drop salvage, as well as a cool alarm effect to be able to draw one, ditch one as well, if it's in your clock. That's a really cool effect, a really helpful effect. Again, more of that hand fixing, decent splash to be able to put in for some of those options, just to get you ready for the next stage of the game. This card here, we have the Battle to Protect a Kingdom, Momon. This card allows you to twin drive, pay one, trigger twice. With that, it also has a climax combo. This is actually relevant because this is actually one of our first climax combos we run in this deck. We run 3 in this deck. That's a little unconventional, but it's actually really cool because with the climax combo here, you're able to look at up to 5 cards, choose one of the blue or the Raven Black trait, and put it into hand, put the rest in the waiting room. So this is searching out for that next level. It's searching out your level 1s. This is searching out your level 2s. This is searching out the cards that are going to help move forward. It also lets you look up to 5, so you have that also potential mill to help race forward through this first deck to get to second deck compression. The condition being that climax infield and you actually have to reveal a soul icon when you trigger. But realistically, you're really going for the twin drive anyway. Twin drive can help pull climaxes out of your stock, helps try to clean up stock. It's a really nice utility card. Comes with the Raven Black trait as well as being blue, so like it's technically searchable through your Brainstormer as well. It's a really nice card when you're able to do that. So it's a great way to help kick off the game right for you. As we move on to our next and last level 0, we're looking at the Infiltration of the Capital Shaltir. This card, when placed, allows you to bounce a cost 0 card back to your opponent's hand. So you're able to help clear the fields of potentially annoying level 0 or cost 0 cards that allows you to be able to try to push for damage early. And that's really a good thing that's going to help this deck. If you push damage early, push you into late game to help you survive and help you to potentially even win. This is also a climax swapper, which is actually going to be really relevant in this deck, especially since we run 3 climax combos. Getting the right climax at the right time is very, very helpful. It has a long-term utility, as well as the initial being able to get what you need and push for damage. As we jump into our level 1s, we're going to start off with our 1/1, which is a really interesting card. It allows you to gain an additional 3,000 power and an additional soul if you're in the middle position of your center stage. So it becomes a 1/1/7/5 in the middle plus a 2 soul. Again, to be able to kind of push for damage. It has character card encore, so being able to discard a character card from hand and rest your character in the middle. Alongside the Brainstormer, which grants additional 500 power to the middle, you'd be sitting at 8,000 power in the middle at level 1. This can become a struggle for some decks to be able to get up to this power consistently across board, as well as being a 2 soul that you can bring back early. Next up, we have our level 1 combo. The Hero of Heroes, Momon. This card actually gets experience. Going through this deck, we're going to want to make sure that we're keeping a good eye on that. We have quite a few cards that involve experience, so making sure that we get some decent higher level cards into our level zone is going to be very important, especially with our level 1 combo. If we're not clocking at least a level 2 card at level 1, we're not going to do well. It's what it is. The combo's not going to be nearly effective. Our level 1 combo is an on-reverse combo, which is different from our level 0 combo. Our level 0 is on attack. This one's on reverse. Gains additional experience from the level 2. So with experience, you're looking at 6,000, 7,000 with the climax. So it's a little bit lower for what we would really, really want for an on-reverse combo. However, if you can reach level 1 first and clear out some zeros. That's why a lot of our zeros are on the smaller side. It allows your opponent to be able to reverse your zeros, push you up, to then you can reverse them and get the reverses that way. Because this reverse combo is actually really, really helpful. On reverse, you're able to gain an initial level, so you become a level 2 card, and an additional 2,500 power. So you're looking at 8,500 until the end of your opponent's next turn. So not only do you become a really good defensive wall, on top of that, you get to reveal the top card of the deck, and if it is either the Grotesque Race, which most of the cards have this Grotesque Race trait, or Humanoid Race character, put it into your hand, otherwise you have to leave it there. So like you have potential to also plus a card off the top as well as this additional power boost. If you can get to level 1 first, all of a sudden you become 8-5 against your opponent. Your opponent is going to have a hard time getting board presence, especially if you can maintain this across field. It allows you to stand up really well. Another one of our level 1s, we have the Blue Rose Lachias. We've seen this profile printed a couple times, where it gains power based off of the other blue or raven black characters, which is really important to note because some of our cards don't have that. If we're doing it level 1, our Brainstormer's blue. Our level 1 so far, all of our level 1s are raven black characters, so we have this potential to keep going forward as well. So we can get up to about 6,000 that way if we're at full field. When the card's sent to the waiting room, we can reveal up to 3, choose one blue or raven black character from among them, put them into our hand, put the rest in the waiting room. So again, another way to be able to either mill or to be able to hand filter a little bit to get our cards that we're looking forward to in the future. As we jump into level 2, we have our early play killer that allows us to essentially remove these pesky early plays by putting them into stock, taking the top card of stock into their waiting room. So if you run into, level 3 Shizus, this allows you to kind of get rid of Shizu without them being able to encore it back onto field, as well as having Twin Drive. Again, still more of that climax fixing, still more of that ability to push damage. This deck really likes to push damage in order to be able to get to the end game. Next up, we have our backup, Cold Reaction Nabe. Discard 2 to remove their character into the waiting room, as well as being a backup of 2,500 power. Next up, we have our counter card. This is a really interesting one because it allows us to pay 1, heal 1 when we use it from our clock, and to return it to our hand. So not only were we paying 1 to heal, but we're also returning it to our hand, and it has to be a blue rose character card in our clock. And so if we have our level 3 endgame, which is going to be the blue rose trait, we can then pull that into hand at level 2 to get ready for that next turn. So not only healing, preparing for the endgame, and return it to hand. It's a great card. Next up, we have our assist. It is a level assist, so based off of the level of the card in front of you, gains additional 500 power per that level. So when our level 1 combo becomes level 2, this would increase. So even at level 2, it's helping to increase our combo consistently further. So instead of a 8-5, all of a sudden front attacking, it's only gets the 500 defense now because it's a level 2 additional 1,000. So you're looking at 9-5 on defense. It's a really fun card to be able to put out, as well as when you rest this card, you can choose one of either your blue or raven black characters, and then you can bottom deck your opponent's character when you reverse it. So it allows you to kind of stuff the bottom of the deck with non-climaxes, which actually becomes important for the end game. Because as we look into the end game, we're going to look right at our end game combo. This is the Blue Rose Evil Eye. On play, heal 1, as well as the climax combo itself. When the climax is placed, the effect happens. So not even an attack step. Even if your opponent is trying to remove characters from field, this is during your climax phase. So your opponent doesn't get a chance to really respond to this yet. So on play of the climax, you get to choose one of the following effects. If you have another blue card or raven black character, so if you have another one of this card or one of the yellow level 1s, choose up to 3 cards in your opponent's waiting room, return them to their deck. And then your opponent shuffles the deck. So it's a great way to put 3 cards that your opponent can't use effectively back into their deck to potentially even deal those out as damage. Or cards that they could use depending on what the game state looks like. This is a card that's very dependent on your opponent's game state. That's one of your options. Another option, choose 2 cards in hand, discard them, and if you do that, deal X damage equal to the number of climaxes in your opponent's waiting room. Really cool effect for this is, especially if you can get your opponent down to low numbers, been using the level 2 assist in the back, tapping it, stuffing the bottom, getting your opponent low on deck. If you can hit them when they're really low in their deck, stuffing cards back in becomes more effective and more damaging. So that way you can then essentially, you can kind of snipe the victory with this card. If your opponent's out 7 climaxes, they have 1 card left in deck, and you know it's clean because you cleaned it out, do this twice, and you're able to put 3 of these down on field, shuffle back 3 twice, burn 7, and your opponent's dead from 3-0, and you haven't even attacked yet. So it's a really cool way to be able to end games. One of our other level 3s we have our early play, Nazarick's Value Nabe. This comes into play if you have 2 or less climaxes in waiting room. She gets -1 level in hand. She also has an experience factor. If your experience is 4 or higher, she gets an additional 1,000 power. So she becomes, instead of a 9-5, a 10-5. And on play, look it up to X, X being the number of characters your opponent has. So it's really dependent on where your opponent is and what's going on. I think this is a really interesting card. I think it's an important card for the deck. In my personal opinion, I think the flavor text sums it up nicely. I don't prefer this card. I run this card for the off chance that I need it in certain situations, but I typically run this card to, if I can, use this as level fodder for the experience for the level 1. Because this is a great way to meet that experience 2 at level 1 while also getting yellow in level zone for the level 1 combo. That's typically what I use her for, is level experience, especially because your level 1 combo can get big. Especially if you have the 2-1 assist at level 2, you're already looking at 9-5, not including the potential backups you would have in hand. For me, she doesn't have as much use, but you might find it differently for you. Like, you may find that you need that 10-5 power on stage at level 2 to be able to compete for board. Because especially since the level 1 combo on attack isn't very big, this one would have a bigger attack value. Just something to keep in mind as you're going through. You have this available to you in the set. I think that not running it has more of a downside than running it. It's definitely worth running, it's worth keeping. And this is coming from the person that early plays in, for example, early plays Slime is the way to go. You need to early play every single time you run that deck. Otherwise the deck's ineffective. This one, I don't know that you need it, especially if you can get the 1/1 2-soul already. So you already have a 2-soul on field with hand encore. So that's just my opinion. It allows you to get an additional 2-soul to again, kind of push for damage, but that's just my opinion. Our other level 3 is we have a Re-Estander here, a new legend Momon, to just kind of be able to push for endgame damage if we need to, which is it's actually a really interesting card as well. You can pay 1 when you reverse the card in front of you. You can choose another level 3 of your opponents, and that character, or a level 3 or lower, so any card of your opponents, and that character does not stand until your opponent's next stand phase. Now, this wouldn't affect cards with hexproof, but forcing your opponent to rest cards for their turn is a very strong tactic, especially if there's, like, for example, if there's other level 3s that you can't beat over and you know you're going to have another turn afterwards. Forcing them to be rested so that your opponent has to either play over them or has to do something in some way to try to mitigate that, it becomes much more difficult. I've seen where people also will try to rest Brainstormers, for example, rest cards that help your opponents to continue to gain advantage. Forcing them to be rested is a very powerful mechanic. The other half of this card, you rest one of your characters, and this is a cost that you pay at the end of your card's attack. So if one of your back row characters is still standing, you're able to rest it, and then you put 3 cards from the bottom of your opponent's deck into their waiting room, and if there are no climaxes, stand the card. You can effectively help manage that with the 2/1 level assist, because you're putting cards on the bottom of the deck that aren't climaxes. And so that way you can clear out the bottom, so when you remove the bottom and there's no climaxes, because you put the cards on bottom, you can restand the card and attack again. It works really well with the set and the other cards in the set to be able to help to guarantee this condition. It's a very easy condition to meet for a Re-Estander with this set. So it's definitely worth running. As we look at the set as a whole, I've priced out the cards in before you, as well as provided the number of cards of each of them I run to make this set worthwhile. I've also priced out the total coming to $111, according to jktcg.com. A decent price for what the deck's trying to do. You'll notice the most expensive card is the Drop Searcher, partly because it's also used in like just about every build with Overlord. So, I mean, it becomes a very important card. Worth noting that's where a good majority of the price comes from. As again, for the objective of this deck, you're looking to prepare for the level 1 wall. Whether that's through the level 0 combo to help try to get those cards into hand, whether it's through using the Brainstormer to get your pieces parts ready. Once you have the wall, get big. Get the reverses, stay big, and work towards the end game. The end game being that level 3, the potentially precise burn, the padding of the deck, trying to stuff it with all of these cards that would be good to get rid of for your opponent, and to potentially eliminate your opponent from the game with the manipulation you have of your opponent's deck. As we look at competitive level of this deck, this is a deck that I think would be really good for locals. I think it has a lot of good uses. It's hard for this deck to see further competitive play, especially with the amount of precision this deck needs to run, because there's a lot of cards that require different effects in place to be able to maximize their opportunities. I think it's a fun one for locals, and it's fun to play against others with that capacity, because it has the ability to mess with deck states. But there are some cards that are decent options as well. We have the double R Brainstormer, the one that will hit every character from waiting room, put them back into hand, and gives a minus 500 power until end of turn on play effect. The Crimson Red Battle Maiden Shaltir. This is a card that you could run in the set as well. For me, it provides more options for the blue or Raven Black trait. So it allows for those to miss more with that in this deck. This is the Brainstormer of the set, so you're going to see that card specifically when you're going up against other decks, whether it's decks that use the standby route. Typically, they're going to be using the standby route. Let's be real. Another card that's also interesting and worthy of noting is A Maiden's Heart Evil Eye. This is a level 0 that has an assist of 500 power to all of your blue or Raven Black characters. So if you're thinking that you're running into too many of the Floor Guardian cards or Eins, if you need more of that blue fix, this is a way to go. It also allows you to essentially draw 1, discard 1 off the top of the deck if it's an event blue or Raven Black character. So again, it would be to help remove some of those other cards out of the way for this to hit. But this is also a good way to get the 2/1 event or the 2/1 counter into hand to be able to use that. So it's a good way to draw into that. Grants additional power for the level 1 combo, which is really dependent on reverses So yeah, with that, this has been Overlord. This has been my deck of Overlord. We're looking forward to seeing more as gameplay comes out. Speaking of gameplay, we're going to have gameplay on Thursday to be able to see some of this deck in action. So we're looking forward to that. Until then, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.